on this wild journey with me to help me make it to today and write this speech for you. And that person, of course, you know, is our wonderful office manager, but to me, she is the world, and to me, she is my mom. As most of you know, I'm Sirianni, and I have Asperger Syndrome. I've come today to tell you a little bit about Asperger's and what my life living with this diagnosis is like living with this diagnosis. There are several definitions of Asperger's, but one is Asperger Syndrome is a developmental disorder that mainly impairs social skills, but not intelligence or language development. It can also be called an Asperger syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, because it shares some features of autism or pervasive developmental disorder. But first, let me begin with some facts about my childhood. I grew up unaware that I had special needs. However, I never looked anyone straight in the eye because I had a lazy eye. When I was about 18 months old, I began wearing glasses until I was in the 6th grade. Shortly after I started walking, a doctor friend of ours noticed I was walking with my feet swinging outward, like this. They weren't straight. He originally prescribed for me cables that hung from a belt at my waist and were attached to my shoes, causing my feet to turn inward as I walked. At night, I wore shoes that were attached to a bar, holding my feet in the correct position. By the time I entered kindergarten, I no longer wore the shoes on the cables or slept with the shoes attached to a bar, but wore corrective shoes, which I hated. I couldn't stand them. These shoes prevented me from running with the rest of the kids. In school, the kids made fun of my glasses and my shoes. This discrimination led me to prefer playing by myself at school and playing alone in my room, all at home throughout my elementary, junior high, and high school years. In 1979, when I was 8, we moved to Cabrera. My 3rd grade teacher determined I needed additional help from the resource specialist, Mrs. Gravitz, on reading, writing, and math. At some point during that school year, Mrs. Gravitz met with my parents and myself, and I explained that I am dyslexic. According to the dictionary, dyslexia is a very broad term defining a learning disability that impairs a person's fluency or comprehension, accuracy in being able to read. According to, Temple Grandin, in her book, The Way I See It, she says, children are often not diagnosed, quote, with Asperger's until they are 8 or 9. Many are misdiagnosed with conditions that share many of the same characteristics such as ADHD, learning disabilities, or dyslexia, end quote. At this time, I was put in a resource program to help me in school. I remained in this program through high school when I graduated in 1989. At my last evaluation before graduation, my mother asked, "Will Jenny go to college?" She was given no response. For the next few years, I enrolled in with work training programs, which is now called Pathpoint, and they placed me in different jobs with job coaches. I also took some classes at SBCC as a DSPS student, that stands for Disabled Students Programs and Services. In 1999, we connected with a retired school psychologist, Bill Elliott. He tested me and met with me several times. He was the one who was able to diagnose me with Asperger syndrome. When I was first diagnosed as an Aspie, as we are called, I learned that Asperger's was connected with autism. It really affected me physically and emotionally. I thought it meant I was mentally party. I turn to acts of hurting myself physically and verbally. It's hard to truly define an Asperger syndrome because no two of us Aspies are alike. Some non-positive, some not so positive traits we have are taking things literally, being vulnerable, tendencies towards self-destruction, lack ability in making and keeping friends, socially inappropriate behavior, disorganized, terrible at managing our money, rambling when trying to explain things, interrupting conversations, and inappropriately finishing other people's sentences. On the more positive side, I have a great memory, and I challenge any of you to a game of Jeopardy. You will be surprised. My family loves the fact I have, for some things, a photographic memory. If you've lost something and I've seen it, I'll remember where it is, even if it was some time ago. I remember detailed information about my childhood. I remember all the lyrics to songs and who sang them. I have instant identification of famous people. This last February, my mother and I attended an Autism Asperger conference where I realized who I really am and gained a much better attitude about myself. Some of the workshop leaders were self-diagnosed with Asperger's or autism. They were an inspiration to me. One of the workshops focused on the hidden curriculum, which refers to things which many people just pick up. But those who have social cognitive challenges and predominantly interpret language literally do not. Aspies need to be taught to recognize body language, idioms, etc., and educated in appropriate social behavior. For example, in the classroom, if the teacher asks, raise your hand if you know the answer, does not mean raise your hand and blurt out the answer, but raise your hand and wait to see if you are called on to give the answer. Our language is loaded with idioms, which we all understand, but Aspies do not. We'll take them literally. Imagine what we think when we hear things like, it's raining cats and dogs. My mom said this to me many times, you're driving me up the wall. I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse. When pigs fly. And all you mothers will appreciate this one. And I thought my mom did too. I have eyes in the back of my head. And the one that I've contributed to, I thought this a long time ago, water polo. How big of a pool do you have to play that game? Since I've become more aware of my challenges as an Aspie, I'm beginning to learn how to fit into society. I hope what I have said today has given you a better understanding of those of us with Asperger's syndrome. If you wish further information on the subject, I have some resources. Books, House Rules by Jody Picoult. Excuse me. The Way I See It by Temple Grandin, PhD, who is, by the way, her first book was an HBO special and won Emmys, Golden Globes, etc. The Hidden Curriculum. This is also on DVD for those of you who might want more visual aspects. And this is my favorite because this is filled with all those idioms I mentioned and then some unintentional humor. It's celebrating the literal line of autism. And this is written by a mother and son team I believe. It's a great book. There is a bookstore in Santa Barbara called Special Needs Project. TV shows, Parenthood. A family deals with an Aspie and the decisions they have to make. The Big Bang Theory. One of the characters, who is a PhD, is an Aspie. You can tell by his characteristics. The website, autism.org. And by the way, you may have noticed my necklace. There's a puzzle piece on here. Autism Awareness ribbon and website is a puzzle piece. And our ribbon has different colored puzzle pieces on it. Because our lives are a big puzzle game. Some puzzle pieces are missing, some are not. And I have mentioned the term mentally retarded, and I want to make it clear that as a musician, I know what retarded means. And retard does not refer to a human being with a heart that beats, a soul that feels, and a mind that thinks. Mine just thinks differently. Mine is like a cell phone with no reception. You ask me, do you hear me now? I might get back to you in 20 minutes because it doesn't connect. One of our local organizations is TRAP, which stands for the Rhythmic Arts Project. And what it does is it helps autistic people through drums, through drum circles, drum beats, to calm and collectively help them in a musical situation. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share with you my life as an Aspie.